It would be a Friday and I'd be sitting on the floor just so isolated and feeling so alone and not knowing what to do or who to call and just truly being distraught.
Why did you stay?
Going back to what I knew wasn't going to help me move forward.
We're terrified to actually make moves unless we have the whole journey mapped out.
Unless we break out of that conditioning and start to really ask ourselves, who are we? What do we want? What lights us up? What brings us joy? Who do we want to be? If we're not consciously asking ourselves those questions, we will follow the blueprint or the script that has been written for us.
Yes.
And it's a full circle moment because I am best positioned to serve my younger self, and the environments and what I've created is so that you don't need to, burn it all to the ground, or you don't need to put yourself into solitary confinement. The community and the women that are attracted to these spaces are like nothing else in this world. Put yourself in the arena. I promise you that's where the answers and the magic lies.
Today's guest knows what it's like to feel the nudge that your current path isn't quite it. After starting out in the fashion industry, she transitioned into the corporate world, building a successful career in property and real estate. But over time, she felt called towards something deeper, a life of greater meaning, connection, and purpose. That calling led her to create a business centered around holding space for women to reconnect with themselves through immersive, soul-nourishing experiences, retreats, and intentional community. If you've ever felt like you were meant for something more, something truer, this conversation is for you. Grace Henry-Hicks, welcome to Not So Status Quo.
I am so excited for this conversation.
Me too, because we have just been chatting for we've already done a podcast before this essentially.
45 minutes.
Yeah. Of chatting. I felt like we would vibe in person, and that would be an understatement. So yeah, I'm so glad to be able to fit into your busy schedule, because I know that at the moment things are taking off and I can't wait for us to go there. But you have a very, very interesting journey.
Interesting is the best way to describe it.
So if you could give your current life chapter a title, what would it be?
I would say building.
Ooh. Yeah. Okay. And what does that mean?
At the moment, I am really in the portal of creation, ideation, and building. So for me, my word this year was actually momentum, because I thought, I'm going to be in flow. There's going to be just this amazing, momentum and speed to what we're creating. And it's been the complete opposite. It's been the year of pivoting.
Okay.
Yes, truly, between cyclones and, rejections and proposals and just things like definitely not going to plan. It's been crunchy, and I'm really proud though, because now upon reflection, the pivoting has allowed me to have the knowledge, the depth and the experience that I needed to hopefully now sail into more of a end of the year that's momentum.
It's interesting because it's not part of the plan that you consciously thought was the plan, but it's all part of the plan.
Yes. Well said.
Which is interesting, because I think a lot of the time we think that, and the whole reason this podcast exists, and you are testament to this, is that it isn't a linear journey. It isn't point A to point B. It's literally point A to point Z. And there are so many twists and turns, and we don't have to know what the next one is. We just need to know, okay, this is our next step. I'm going to jump into this step, and just have that faith that the rest is going to reveal itself when I need to know.
Oh, my relationship with surrender has truly been magnified and are so well articulated there, is that now I'm in this place of just, what will be, one foot in front of the other. It's all going to, come to fruition.
Scary though, because it's unknown, and you and I both know a lot about the brain and the body and the way that works, and how much it likes to keep us stuck in what's familiar, and even if it's not necessarily what we actually truly desire and want. So naturally our body is going to give us cues of this doesn't feel so great. So good on you for navigating that and pivoting.
Yes, so well said. And feeling, familiar is safety. And
Yes.
so now you've just got to love the unknown and just love the crunchy components. And I think that's a skill that you have to, really finesse and build.
Yeah, I think it takes courage. So what I like to do with my guests is go back to the beginning. And the reason I like to do that from when you're a child is because I often find that the things that we lose sight of as we are growing and aging that actually brought us a lot of joy as children, we sometimes return back to those things as adults, but they kind of get lost along the way. So I'd love to know about young Grace. What was she like? What did she love? What lit her up?
Oh, beautiful question. Young Grace. Oh, she was a plot twist. She was definitely when I was younger, probably 0 to 7 was my really creation. I was very fearless and theatrical and passionate and colourful. And then from that 7 to 14, I I feel as though they're the years where the world gets a little bit confusing, and I moved away from a lot of the things that were brought me joy. So it's so funny what you say, because I used to do performances for my family and create these, treasure hunts and all these different like
Ooh.
experiences for them. And I look back and I'm like, oh, withholding space, there's similarities in, wanting to create experiences and joy for people, and alignment there.
And so then through your teenage years, was there anything in particular that occupied a lot of your free time?
Ooh, I loved drama, and I from 7 to 14 went in from primary school to high school, and I just feel like the school system for me was where I lost a lot of my spirit, and it was so confusing, and I just remember just disliking it so much. I felt so caged, and it was something that then became something I wanted to escape for a lot of my teenage years. I had a real big problem with authority, and being told what to do, and that confines of the classroom. And I look back now and I just think, oh, how much we don't know about, different child's needs and how we all operate differently. And I was a child not made for the schooling system, for sure.
It's interesting when you actually put a child in the right environment with the right supports and you help them learn in a way that actually makes sense to them, how much they actually thrive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're such little beings at that time, and one person, one teacher, one creative outlet, one, right environment can truly help the spirit of somebody flourish.
Absolutely. So what came after school then? So school wasn't necessarily your favorite thing in the world. So what did you choose to do after school?
So I finished school and I loved writing. I loved journalism. I loved drama. And I went from school straight into uni after about a year and studied journalism in Brisbane. And my family are all entrepreneurs, and it's, you think like you're 17 and someone's like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Like, what is your passion? And I feel as though that's so difficult when you don't know who you are. And so we are so conditioned at that age by what we know to be familiar, or what has been demonstrated to us, or the scripts that we've been given. And I just remember during that time, like finding elements and components of university, or through working in retail, and those different experiences that I was facing that I enjoyed, and then a lot that I didn't. And so I followed that through for a year or two, and then I really made a brave move to move away from home and go to a college in Sydney, in Manly, called ICMS, which is a business school.
Okay.
So that was based on, I woke up one day, I would have been 19, and was like, I need to leave.
Wow.
Yeah.
Had you had fleeting feelings like that before, or it was just this one day, just out of nowhere, like this urge?
I had started the inner work quite young because I felt disconnected from myself. And so I was always trying to understand, like, what is the meaning of this? Like, what is my purpose? Like, how is nobody else asking these big questions? And so I went down the wrong path and was just completely disassociated as a child. I was literally like living in the clouds. I had, really felt that, I was the only girl in the world, and had felt very lost. And so as a result, I was just running on the hamster wheel, and I needed to try and find out, what is my purpose and why am I here? And I had a very, great family life and security and safety and a cushy, environment to live in. And I needed to find out who I was outside of that and become the friend I wanted to be, and have, no one that knew who I was or had any preconceived ideas about, me as a person. And I had to go and build that. So I moved to Sydney and I didn't know anyone. And
Wow.
the college I went to, you had to wear a uniform, and it was an international college. So it was like, all of like foreign students, and it was, you literally got your tray at dinner time and would like put your food on your tray. And then I remember looking around, I'm like, where am I going to sit?
Oh,
Where am I going to sit
like in
next
the
to?
movies.
Yeah,
Oh.
literally. So that was the start of, I would say, my true coming home to me.
Interesting. Did you have moments where you were like, did I even make the right choice? Like, why did I do this?
Yeah, I remember calling my parents on my, on my college dorm room, and it would be a Friday and I'd be sitting on the floor just so isolated and feeling so alone, and not knowing what to do or who to call, and just truly being distraught.
I can imagine. What kept you going? Like, you easily, it sounds like, could have just decided to go back home and continue on the path that you had been. Why did you stay?
Yeah, it might sound cliche, but I knew that through my study or through the people that were expanders to me, that I had to move through the discomfort to really understand the answers. And so going back to what I knew wasn't going to help me move forward. And so I think I had a deep inner knowing and an element of understanding that through the discomfort there would be deeper connection to self, and potentially give me clues on what I was meant to do with my life. And so I had to, really push through during that season.
Yeah, I can imagine. My gosh. I mean, that takes a lot of courage, especially at the age of 19. Your friends are probably off doing the same similar type of thing. They're all going to university, probably in the same area, and the familiarity of where you've grown up, and just completely taking a leap of faith and moving to Sydney, like from Brisbane to Sydney, is like very different. You're not a journalist now, though.
No.
So there's obviously been a fair bit that's happened in that time. Step me through that.
Some big pivots. And it's interesting because I think of your story too, and how at 30 you walked away from everything that was familiar to you. And I look back now upon reflection and what that season taught me, and that was that, home will always be within myself, and I will be able to move through discomfort, and that on the other side of discomfort is really where the magic lies.
Yes.
And that pattern is what has, stayed with me from that experience. And you had that yourself, and I'd love to just see how you can mirror my experience maybe to yours through what you went through at 30.
Yeah. So I think a lot of my regular listeners know that at 29, 30, I decided to end my marriage, and I'd been with my ex for about 11 years. And we had a mortgage, a home together. We traveled the world every year. We both had great jobs. We were living the life that from the outside everyone would look at and think, wow, like you guys have it all. And it's really interesting when you take a step back and you actually allow yourself to explore the idea that, am I actually really happy?
Yes.
Because my life looks like a certain thing on paper. There's not really animosity day to day in the relationship. There's not these big red flags at this point when I was contemplating the relationship. And I was like, just because it feels comfortable, just because it looks good from the outside, just because it will take everyone by surprise, doesn't mean that it's right for me. And who am I? And what do I want for my life? And does that align with what this person wants for their life? And I came to a realization because it wasn't just me. There was somebody else involved, and I'd said vows, I'd made commitments, I'd made promises. So I had never thought, as I'm sure no one does, that you're going to get married to get divorced. Divorce wasn't an option for me. That's not what I'd thought. But when it came down to it, I had many tough conversations with myself, like really sticky, uncomfortable conversations that were like, are you willing to self-sacrifice? Are you willing to abandon yourself for the rest of your life? Because that's what it is. I was actually saying to a client this morning, a lot of people are saying, oh, this decision is selfish or this decision is selfish. And, you should pander to the needs of other people more. I think if people started calling it for what it was, maybe they wouldn't think that they're just being selfless or that they're people pleasing. It actually really is an abandonment of yourself and your boundaries. So I had these conversations and I looked at both sides of like, what would it look like to stay and keep everything, maintain the status quo? What would it look like to literally burn it all down? And I know that you also can relate very strongly to that. I actually also released a few weeks ago an episode that's titled Burning It All Down and Starting Again. I know the parallels.
Oh my gosh.
I know. So that, yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily the fact that I had this urge to just burn it all down. It was the fact that I actually needed to find myself.
Yeah.
And I actually had to put my needs first.
Yeah.
And I neglected those for a really long time. And I made the decision on that on a particular day. It was a Sunday around my 29th birthday, a few days beforehand. And I thought, my next birthday is 30. What is my life going to look like at 30? I don't want it to look like what it does now. So I took a leap of courage. I was very fortunate that I had a support network. And
It's
here I am.
just the beauty of what you speak to is that we have so much around us when you've been in a relationship for that long, right? Where you have evolved into so many different ideations of yourself through that seasons. And then it is expected that you stay in, the confines of what you created, and that there's shame around, not honoring the vows, but that there's shame around the fact that you are a different woman than you were at the time of, meeting your partner and building that life. And I just want to give you so much just grace and I think it's like a appreciation and gratitude for being an example to other women out there that if it doesn't feel right, if you are in a relationship, in a job, in a friendship, in a, environment that is in your intuition not feeling right.
Yeah.
It is the best thing that you can do for yourself and for others.
Yes, and for others.
Yeah, for others. And is to look at being brave and making those changes, and it will be so so uncomfortable, and there will be other people that will be hurt in the process, but that is where you can truly understand who you are and the life that you want to create.
But there's discomfort on both sides, because if I didn't leave, that feeling's not going away. When you're not living in alignment, that never goes away. So it's uncomfortable, and there is there's heartbreak, and there's a lot of things that go into it. And, it does get, like, divorces often get messy. Separating assets, there's feelings involved. So, it does happen. But if I had have stayed, a few things, and I'm sure you're probably like me, I think about every possible scenario when it comes to making these decisions, especially such a big one. And I thought, well, first of all, this person actually deserves to have someone who can't wait to have a family with them, and I'm actually depriving them of that opportunity. And that's actually that's not a kind thing to do to that person, because I'm maintaining the relationship at what cost? At the end of the day, like, I have dreams, but my ex-partner has dreams too. And so making the decision to stay would have caused me so much discomfort because I'm not living my authentic expression. You can sweep that under the rug as many times as you want. I've tried before. It will not go away. You will always feel that uncomfortable feeling. You will feel frustrated. It comes out in the sighs that you give out when you have to open your laptop at the job that you don't like, or you have to go to a commitment that you should have said no to, but you did so out of obligation. Like, it's not going to go away. So anyway, I honored that. And
it gets louder.
It gets louder.
Yeah.
It gets louder. Like, you can't ignore. And you don't want to get to a place where there's a lot of resentment and, these feelings. Like, it doesn't have to get to that place, but yeah. Just being prepared that it does cause heartbreak and animosity, but everyone heals. So what was your next move after Sydney?
So when I was in Sydney, I made a friend who was from Melbourne. I met at the college. Her name was Alex, and she truly, to this day, has been one of the best and most pivotal humans on my life journey. And I was flying down to Melbourne and visiting her family and staying with her whilst finishing studying in Sydney. And I was studying business, majoring in retail management and really stepping into the buying space of fashion. And a lot of the head offices are in Melbourne. So it was all, divine timing that I was there and working with some different businesses there, as well as completing my studies. And then I made the decision to move to Melbourne after Sydney. So that was another pack up everything and move to Melbourne, following this trajectory of life, which I thought was the succession plan. Like, this is what you do. You finish, then you work here and you do these things. And retail was in my family. So much of why am I here? What am I meant to do? Hadn't landed at that stage. Okay. And I had learnt to really befriend the discomfort. And so the next move was a lot easier. However, looking back, it was so out of alignment with who I am.
Really?
I'm a sunshine beach girl, very much, ocean is part of my DNA. Like, it has always been my biggest grounder. And I found myself in Melbourne, 2 degrees, concrete jungle, and that was the next chapter where I moved further and further away from, I think, my true essence.
Okay.
But this chapter was definitely the most transformative for me.
And tell me about that. How was it transformative?
I started a whole new slate. So that for me was, what type of friend do I want to be? How do I want to show up in my day-to-day? What uncomfortable environments do I want to put myself into? What type of work ethic do I want to have? And I ended up really creating some of the most beautiful relationships there and pushing myself in a career space that was really challenging. I then decided to step into property, which was a plot twist in itself. However, the human connection, negotiation, I loved, it has that flexibility where you aren't in that confined office all day, and that really allowed me to thrive because I was able to meet with people as well as working on deals and site visits, and I was on a mission to change the property industry for women and show that women could sit at the table, and I loved that challenge, and it was really what became part of my empowerment mission, because I had to work harder to receive the same commission as some of the male colleagues, or have the same respect, or not walk into a meeting room and be judged for my appearance. And I didn't know Victoria at all. I had maps all over my bedroom trying to learn the grid of, all of the major shopping centres and freeways. And it was, really, I didn't have family there that I had, memories for different locations that allowed me to learn quicker. I had to study, and I threw myself into that with devotion.
And what brought you back to Brisbane? Because we were talking before and you got into human design. So we've had quite a few pivots and evolutions. I'm interested to know, is it a gut feeling that you've had during that time that's made you feel like, okay, this just isn't for me? Like what has been your cue or your sign that you are out of alignment?
For me, I was so fixated on trying to understand what this was all about. You know, it's funny that I'm in this position right now because it all makes sense because I was given these parameters that life was meant to make me feel, you know, happy and successful within, and I wasn't ever feeling that truth. And so many other people were accepting that, you know, you go to work and you come home and you do this on the day-to-day 365 days of the year and you get 4 weeks of holidays, and you know that is our reality. And for me, I always felt like there was more, and I felt the more that I started to stop running and start being, and that was through meditation and breath work and really slowing down as my corporate career started causing more stress and more discomfort. That misalignment became more evident in my day-to-day, and that looked like soul crushing. Like it just was a part of me where I started to lose my spark and really started to lean into the modalities that I bring into the events to try and uncover how do I come back to myself? How do I show up as the best version of myself? And what is happening to me, and why is it happening to me? And so I realized there was, you know, women all around me who were asking those same questions to themselves, but just not out loud. And so I really started to ask those questions out loud.
Sounds like you have a really strong gut intuition, because if you've made these jumps and you've taken these leaps of faith, like that means that's come from somewhere. But it also means that you have enough self-trust to be able to take those jumps into the unknown and just see what happens.
You speak to it so well as well, in the way that we are all so conditioned, and unless we break out of that conditioning and start to really ask ourselves, who are we? What do we want? What lights us up? You know, what brings us joy? Who do we want to be? If we're not consciously asking ourselves those questions, we will follow the blueprint or the script that has been written for us.
Yes.
And we will feel so much fear doing anything but what has been programmed or demonstrated to us. And so that you could have two women who come into an event, two very different life experiences and two very different perceptions on what is happening. One may come in with complete fear, feeling as though somebody's looking at her inappropriately, like, you know, not wanting to connect with her, in a state of fight or flight. The other one can come in and say, oh my gosh, this is one of the most expansive, loving rooms that I've ever been in. And the true differences are based on that person's life experiences to that point.
Yes.
And so we have to create environments that allow us to feel safe to ask ourselves these questions and to receive inspiration or potentially a blueprint that could be more aligned to what's best for us. And that is what I started to see, is that the blueprint in front of me wasn't mine, and I needed to create one that was authentically true to what I deemed success to be.
And how did you go about that process then? So you've reached the determination that this isn't it. Like it absolutely wasn't journalism. It wasn't fashion. It's not real estate. Arguably, you've gained so much incredible experience. I think that's actually part of the, a lot of people are like, you know, I don't know what move to make next. Well, a really great move is to understand what you don't like. So you've tried your hand at these things. You've probably learned along the way, there's elements of this job that I like. Like I like actually the people, the interaction with people, but I don't like this element. That in itself gets you the step closer to the next thing. That next thing might only be short, or, you know, it might be just like for a season. It might not be for a lifetime. So when you had that realization, okay, this is absolutely not it, what was the process around trying to find what the next thing was?
It was profound, because the more success I gained through property and the more accolades I received and the more I started to gain confidence in the trajectory of property and working as a female agent in that space, the more I started to desperately seek the tools that would allow me to grow personally, not just professionally. And so I started seeking out these events in these different spaces and environments because I thought, okay, well, if success for me in this industry is at the sacrifice of health and well-being and family and relationships and self, how do I ensure that I keep these quadrants thriving and show a different way of how in this position you can also accumulate, wealth and success, but also become an incredible leader, mentor, friend, partner, all of the above, because I can't see it in front of me. I started attending these events. I started getting so confused because I'd walk into the room and there'd be these name tags. You'd be in, a boardroom and there would be somebody who had, a woman or man who had achieved great success. However, we weren't receiving any tools about what that looked like in a home environment with a connection to self, understanding, how they worked with mental stress or imposter syndrome, or understanding how to ensure that their nervous system was regulated and they were, in a calm state. There was just this huge part of the conversation that was missing. And then I will remember sitting around these tables and these women would have thought I was so unhinged. I'd be like, tell me about your relationship. Like, how's your partner and your home life? And do you have children? And I started asking them all of these questions and they would come to me with so much wisdom. Oh, well, my relationship is actually in sacrifice at the moment, but I'm here because I'm making X, X bank, and they want me to tell you about this story. And I was like, I don't want to know about that story. I want to know about you, the woman behind the role, and what that looks like.
How are you thriving as a whole being?
As a whole being. And I was fascinated. And then by the end, I'd have these women in circle and we would be unpacking all of these different parts of self in their career journey. And I was just could not unsee what I had seen.
They're mirrors staring you in the face.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing what this is. Yes. What's your next move?
I had to take a real hard look at the environment around me, and I started to truly understand how many other people were suffering and asking the bigger questions that I was in a professional environment. And I took it a step further. I started really trying to understand where are the experiences that allow people to find women that will support them on their journey, where they're authentic and it's real and it's not what can you do for me and why are you here in a business sense of networking. I wanted to know about the woman who could be there as a support system and how we could grow together. And I could not find these environments. It was alarming how isolating and separate and the messaging that was happening. And so I went on a real self-discovery journey myself, and that looked like, if I am asking this, how many others are asking this? And the more spaces I entered, the more I became face to face with the problem, and something needed to be done.
What was the problem?
That so many women were following a trajectory of what success and what their purpose should be, rather than knowing who they are, what their values were, what type of woman they wanted to be, how they wanted to build their life, what brought them joy, what their gifts and their strengths were, what their perfect day would look like if they were on purpose as well as present as a mother or a friend. And the disconnect was unfathomable, and I wanted to change that landscape.
I love that so much. The visual that instantly came to my mind was a woman either being led by society, so society led, society including the people around us, the cultural norms, the family norms, all of these things being led, or being self-led.
Beautiful.
So it's like, okay, there are a lot of women, and it's not just limited. You've been in a couple of industries at that point, and so I'm sure that you were seeing these recurring themes. The beauty of being able to have take a step back and be like, this is actually a recurring theme for women, not just real estate agents,
yes,
not just women in fashion. this is women.
Universal.
This is women in our country, really.
Yes.
You've been in Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, and what did you do with that realization?
Yes, and you just articulated it so beautifully because I became so passionate. I wanted to sit with them and say, what if you could dream, if you could ideate something that your problem you want to solve, or a way that you could spend your day that would just like make you thrive and bring light to your eyes, what would that look like? And so many people hadn't had anyone ask them this question.
Yeah.
And our faculty, like in our brains, like we are here to use our imagination. It's what creates the vision and the reality, and that's through dreaming, and that's through getting a visualization of something that feels true to us from our heart and not from our head. And I want every woman to be able to connect to that part of themselves. And there was no environments that were creating or allowing that or showing that it can be done that way.
Yeah.
And so that was where holding space really started to come to ideation stage. And that was, I couldn't not do something about it.
So let's fill this gap. You've had these incredible, life-changing aha moments in real estate. You've realized that there's a bigger problem here. A few years ago, you launched Holding Space with Grace. What happened in that facilitated the journey to you now, where you are literally holding space? You are literally delivering. You're providing the solution to this huge problem that you saw. How did you make that pivot?
So the pivot was, firstly, I realized that no one will ever receive information unless their nervous system and their state is in a frequency, a place that will allow it to land. So you come into an event, or you come into a space, or we catch up, and you are somebody who's had a whirlwind morning, your boss has yelled at you, and then we sit down and you're about to listen to a women empowerment workshop. Unless you are welcomed into a space that creates safety for you to land and receive the wisdom or the experience or the connection, it will go in one ear, out the other. Your body will reject it because it will find it unsafe. So for me, the biggest change of what had to happen before Holding Space was born was that I had to filter through this program. I had to get so grounded into myself to understand how was I going to put myself out there in an industry that I had never stepped foot into to try and create the change that I wished to see. And that was truly about becoming so sure of who I am and the change I wanted to see that any comment, any unsolicited advice, any rejection wasn't going to deter me from what I was passionately.
Just derail everything.
Yes.
Because that can happen when we're like, oh, we're stepping into the unknown and the new. And then if we're getting this negative reinforcement, and then that self-doubt creeps in. So where does the human design element fit into all of that? Did that help you get clear in any way around your role in this lifetime and your role in these spaces?
When I was still in property and I was living in Melbourne, I went so deep in understanding the tools to understand self. And so that looked like one of my friends moved out of our townhouse and I turned it into a room where I would do meditation and breath work every morning, and I would sit with myself, and it was so uncomfortable and it was the last thing I ever wanted to do. And I started looking into human design. I started working with coaches. I tried to understand, okay, I need somebody who is going to give me the reassurance, the tools, and the guidance that what I am seeing as the problem and what I want to solve and change can be done. And so I first got my human design reading, which blew my mind because I had never felt so seen in what I thought was my insecurities or the things that made me less than. And that was, human design works on energy. My energy, I was manifesting generator. I was so passionate. I was moving quickly. All the parts of my chart that are so detailed, no one could know that. Like no one could have known that. And so when I had this reading, it was a permission slip that everything that you think is something that makes you unlovable or that, it doesn't fit into this world is actually your greatest asset. And from there, it was like, shoo, because my uniqueness was celebrated rather than those parts where I felt that, as I mentioned, were the unlovable parts of me. And so when I started to then, whilst I was in this dark night of the soul in the trenches, I started to play with my human design and everything started to change. And that was the permission slip to live life in accordance what felt right for me. And the more I did that, the better it felt. And so I knew from that our uniqueness is our greatest gift. And if we start to help people come home to that rather than telling them who they are and what they should be and helping them discover that, they just gave me a blueprint to play. And from there, it was just, an unlocking.
That experience would have opened you up to understanding human behavior, understanding women on such a deeper level that undoubtedly would be a huge asset in the work that you're doing now.
I was hosting workshops in my brother's spare room when I was in LA. Would have been 30, and I became so passionate just about watching people really have that aha moment of, wow, this is so relatable. And now I've got such compassion and connection to self through this modality. And that for me was what I loved, because in a world that tries to tell you who you are and what you should be, it is this beautiful modality that helps you explore what feels good for you, not from what people tell you should feel good for you.
Yeah.
And so it's something I want to preface is that it could be that at the right time. It could be meditation. It could be breath work. It could be the girl, the woman at the event that sees you or teaches about the business that they started or the breakup they went through. Everyone's need for a different modality or experience that helps them come home to themselves looks differently. And I, for example, am doing this retreat and it's the self-led woman, and it is, accumulation of breath work, IFS, human design, purpose coaching, and human, community connection. And the whole day is like peeling back the onion layers in different modalities, because I look at it and I say, you can stay in the subconscious for 5% of the time, showing up and doing the same thing over and over and over again. But for the light to come in and for you to try and potentially discover your why or what you're here to do, it is in most cases a blend of modalities.
Yes.
And so what I try to do through the events and through what I curate is it's a journey. It's getting them safe. It's feeling the beauty. It's understanding where the blocks are. It's connecting to self and releasing those. Then it's dreaming, and then it's understanding the steps to move forward. And then it's feeling safe in community, because that's connection is the essence of why we're here. And so what I'm creating is an environment that allows us to feel safe to ask ourselves those questions. But then we don't just leave you. We provide you with those tools and those guides and those women who show your brain, see to believe what's possible. And then you can understand from, this day retreat, wow, like she did that and I can see how she did that. And when I, applied these tools to myself, this felt really good. Oh I cannot believe this memory has been stuck with me, X, Y, and Z. And this experience, which I don't think the world creates for us, allows you to really come home to who you are.
Yeah. I also, let's segue into talking about your incredibly beautiful, even I personally haven't attended one yet. Yet is the key word. I can't wait, because even just through the content that I've seen, they look so nourishing. And through my own work with women just don't actually hold that space to even check in with themselves, to ask them if they're happy in their life, to ask them if they want to go on a different trajectory, if what they're going through is okay. I think sometimes we can get really caught up in the busyness of life. There's a never-ending to-do list. You were in property, you're in Melbourne, you've then gone to LA. Huge. That is another... She likes to relocate.
Yeah. Literally.
Doing human design.
Yeah.
you come back to Australia, and is that when you then started these incredible spaces?
I was in Melbourne, and that was when I knew I drastically needed to change my environment. And our environments are everything. That's very much a big part of
Yeah.
holding space,
Yeah.
because the environment is so conducive to the transformation that these women experience. And so for me, I needed to get out of the environment, and that did look like walking away from everything. That was where I was living, my beautiful friendship group, a relationship I'd been in for 4 years, the property career I'd built for 4 years. Everything out of that chapter I walked away from. And that was, I had created the first or the second holding space events while still living between Brisbane and Melbourne. And I, in my gut, in my heart, in my soul, was like, this chapter has closed. And for me to understand who she is and what that looks like, I need to walk away from everything that could potentially influence that next chapter. And so my brother had a spare room and consciousness, and there was a lot in LA that I knew was going to help inspire me in the event space and the things that I wanted to do. There are several steps ahead with consciousness and events and community, and so I immersed myself in those rooms, and I had nothing and was living in my brother's spare room, and it was a dark night of the soul. It was so raw and uncomfortable, and I had no idea what my life was going to be like. I had to just have that faith and that belief and that self-trust that if I kept one foot in front of the other,
Yes, that's
it
the
would work
key.
out.
Yes. I think sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have it all figured out. Like we're almost scared to make decisions because we want to control all of the pieces of the puzzle. And that does come from a place of fear, which is understandable when we're doing something new. But it holds a lot of people back because we're terrified to actually make moves unless we have the whole journey mapped out. And it's just not kind, and it's unfair to ourselves to do that, to put that pressure on.
And it's a full circle moment, because I am best positioned to serve my younger self, and the environments and what I've created is so that you don't need to, burn it all to the ground, or you don't need to put yourself into solitary confinement. Like, there is a way to receive those answers and that connection to self and those modalities and the inspiration to find your purpose in the environments that I genuinely create for that reason, because it's so needed.
Yeah. And then it helps you make sense of why certain people were placed in your life at a certain time, and, the intricacies of those dynamics and relationships, and why you moved, and maybe why you needed to relocate to this other place because you needed this experience. Like, doing that deeper work, I think, just brings such a level of clarity to, you know what, those really hard times, I actually needed to go through those times because it made my life even better. But when you're in the thick of that, it can be really hard to see. But it sounds like you really held vision for yourself to be like, you know what, this doesn't feel good, and I'm not going to stop here. I'm not going to be like, well, you know what, I've pivoted a couple of times, and so you know what are people going to think if I change again?
Oh, yeah, what do people think? It's so, it just holds so many people back. And I wish if anyone's listening, it's just letting that go, letting go what people think. And that's my biggest why, is like, it has absolutely nothing to do with me. I don't get, nervous about an event or worry about this, conversation or like, I am just the conduit to help people come home to themselves. It's called holding space, but I am, if right there beside you.
Yep.
And that's what I think is so important, that I am so unapologetic in my authenticity, that I'm just, I don't have it all figured out. I'm just passionately trying to be a force for good here. And I think that's refreshing, is that, we are all in this together, and the mission is just so much bigger than me. And that's where I think I'm fortunate, because I get to detach from it, where I don't have to think, oh, what will people think, if I show up, or if I create this event, or if I'm on this podcast, or if I create this part of the business. I'm just so in the why and so in the problem I want to solve, that it allows me not to be, so like, is it selfish, the word, or like, so like,
I love that word, selfish. I literally, it's so interesting because that word came up in a session that I had with a client today, and we were doing a lot of conversation around what does selfish even mean? Like,
Yeah.
when people say the word selfish, it comes with such negative
Mm.
connotation. But it's really interesting. This was in the context of children
Mm.
and having the conversation around people calling her selfish because she's not sure that she wants to have children. And I was like reframing that to be like, but by definition, being selfish means that you're doing something that you want to do. So arguably, and this might get a bit of hate, but your decision to have children is selfish by definition because it is something that you want to do. So therefore you do it. If you don't want to have children, like it's the same thing, but it's really interesting the way that people cast that word and throw that word around. It's like it's negative if you are making a decision that goes against the grain, then you're selfish. And that can paralyze a lot of people.
Yes. Well said.
What are some of the fears that you think a lot of women have when they're contemplating stepping into spaces like the ones that you hold?
Wow, it's been something that's been quite profound recently is there's so much isolation and so much social anxiety that is coming through, which I want to hold them and hug them and make them, every single person who walks through the door, feel so welcomed and so safe. And that's the reality of the world that we're living in, is that there's so much fear out there, and that is from coming alone to even the journey to get to the event. It's not having anyone to speak to at the event. It's what could come through at the event. There's so much that women face, and I think that the most beautiful part of the work that we're doing is watching those women walk out of the event space saying, oh my gosh, not only is the community so forthcoming, but it's how they feel about themselves. They exhale the beauty and the modalities and what we create in the environment and the way that they are just so nourished in these experiences, and they come back time and time again. And I think for me, that is so beautiful to see the initial fear that somebody walks through to be at the event space, and then to just see how they walk out of that. And is there any greater gift on this earth? I don't think so.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, that energy is also infectious. So I can imagine just being in the presence of other women who are also journeying the same similar path on their self-discovery journey would be so magnetic.
I might be biased, but the community and the women that are attracted to these spaces are like nothing else in this world. They are all so heart-led, intuitive, kind, warm. It is almost like there's a conditions that goes out that I don't even know about, where when there's newcomers that come into the space or women who are going through an emotional, journey at the event, these women and how they all show up for one another and the collaborations and the connections that come after the events, it is a ripple effect that is blowing my mind. And it's real and it's authentic. And I'm so proud of that.
Is there a particular transformation that sticks out in your mind that you would love to share around someone who might have been hesitant to even come to this? Maybe it was their first time doing self-development work or holding space for themselves or being in a group environment. Like there's so many firsts potentially for women. Is there anything that you could share on that?
Oh, I get butterflies even thinking about that, because there's several transformations that are coming to mind, and the retreat space, especially recently, because you have that 3-day journey, which is where you can see some of the most profound changes, because they have the time and the space and the alignment with other women and practitioners to go deeper and to really work through the conditioning or the blocks that they may be facing. And for me, most recently has been women coming home to themselves with their truth of how they want their life to look like. And then they've come in, we've worked on their nervous system, we've allowed them to release, to feel safe, to dream, to have different modalities in business and in motherhood and in connection to self, where they've not only been reconnected to themselves, they've been resourced. So they leave the retreat going, okay, here's the blueprint of how I could structure my mornings, or how I can look at, creating a business like this, or how I could look at letting go of what, this frustration or this anger or something that they had been holding on to. And for me, they have then implemented life-changing pivots into their world, whether that's in their career, in their relationship, in their home life where they live. Somebody's just gone to Italy for 3 months, another person's just changed a relationship. The other person's just completely changed her nervous system, and meditation in the day-to-day, and the messages I get bring tears to my eyes because they felt safe to have a container that allowed them to really understand what type of life they want and then to take aligned action to create it.
Yes. I think a misconception in this work is that before they step into a space or into a one-on-one coaching or whatever they feel called to, is that they're going to have to make big drastic changes or they're going to have to sacrifice everything in the process. But it's not like that. Sometimes it's the smallest little tweaks, like literal just small tweaks that can have huge impact. You don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to let go of all of the things that you don't want to. Like, you don't have to make massive changes and start overhauling your routines and your schedules. Like, we all have existing commitments and responsibilities. Sometimes it's literally just the accumulation of just a couple of little tweaks that can make massive difference.
Yes, literally well said. And that's the part where I think self-discovery and just being in environments that allow you to think differently or break patterns or see what could be or receive inspiration or connection, gosh, they can truly enrich your life more than, any sort of drastic decision.
Yeah. For the woman who might be feeling a little bit apprehensive about stepping further into self-development, maybe listening to podcasts like this and consuming maybe your content on social media that's where they're at the moment. It's that contemplation phase. If they're feeling a little apprehensive because they do have the fear around, I'm going to have to shed everything, what would you say to her?
Oh, I would say it's in the micro.
Yeah.
Not in the macro, and to feel safe in being curious. And also something I love is joy. Our events aren't let's go deep into the dark trenches of your soul and like spend the day in like a trauma bonding session. Like, we have gourmet lunches where there's question cards and dancing and like different elements of beautiful grounding in nature, and it is this expression of beauty and joy and connection, and you walk away with a little bit more clarity and a toolkit for self, and take what you need.
Yeah.
But it's not come into this space and face your demons and be left there, and it's actually the opposite. I think that's where we have the perfect blend of it being spirituality and also like business related, as well as the reality of the world that we live in, mixed with joy and also personal development. Like, it's just this like really delicious cocktail.
I really like that the emphasis is also on connection.
Yes.
Because like you said, you don't have to come in and literally do a trauma dump.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to reveal parts of yourself that you don't want to. The experience might be in a group setting, but it's really an individual journey as well. So you will take, from my own experience working with clients, is that they'll take what they need.
Yes.
That might be one small takeaway that was just so relevant to where they were at on their journey, that they just needed that little nugget, that little drop in, and everything else clicks into place.
Yes. And that beauty of seeing another person smile, like that hug or, that taste of food, or that, wind in your hair, or that greenery. And I think we are so disconnected online, and there's just such beauty in in-person connection.
Yes.
It feels like it's sacred. Originally we were in tribes, in circle, in community, and we got to get back there.
Yeah, we do tend to live quite isolated. And when it comes to living the full authentic expression of ourselves, we do have to give ourselves that permission slip. And I think being in a room, because you touched on it earlier, I really loved what you said, like, seeing is believing. So when you're seeing that these other women are also going to step out of their comfort zone and they're also going to do things that are a little bit scary and they're going to do things for the first time and they are going to put their needs as a priority, hopefully any of that shame or guilt, I can imagine a lot of particularly mothers would hold a lot of guilt for wanting to put their needs as a high priority. So seeing other women also leading the charge and doing that too would be really liberating, I can imagine.
That is so much a part of the why is that
Yeah.
they go, we are all in this together. No one's got it figured out. No one is perfect.
Yeah.
And that's where, healed people heal people. And I've never seen more of a ripple effect from community sharing than even from the inspiring stories. It's all interconnected, and that's the real essence of these spaces. It's helping us all to feel a little bit more connected to the reality that we are all walking through, and that we are all seeing and moving through similar problems, or facing different emotions. And when you see people in it with you, or on the other side of it, it is liberating.
Yeah. How do we begin to take that first step and reconnect with ourselves, especially after years of running our lives in the way that we think the world expects us to be?
For me, it was getting still, stopping, breathing, meditating, asking myself the questions and allowing the response to come from within. It may sound cliche, but it is real.
Yeah.
It's where it starts,
Yeah.
and it starts from within with self. And the world tries to tell us otherwise, and that's just not the case.
What do you think then is standing in between the listener right now, where she is and where she wants to get to?
Action, for sure. We can spend so much time in our heads, and the best way to get evidence of what works or what doesn't work is by putting one foot in front of the other.
I love that.
Put yourself in the arena. I promise you that's where the answers and the magic lies.
Yeah, I love that answer. You have so many incredible events that are coming up. You've recently had a couple as well. I know you did a mother's one recently, and that's one thing I really want to commend you on, the fact that you have recognized that there are different spaces. Women generally, it's the same things that are needed, but sometimes being in circle with people that are really journeying similar themes can be really even more empowering. So tell us what is next, because I feel like there's some juicy things.
Oh my gosh, I'm so passionate, and that's, to my detriment sometimes, because I can just see how profound the impact of these spaces can be on a woman's life, and that's in motherhood, business, just connection to self. And so the mothers for me is a really big one. I look at such a need to provide spaces for them to release, to recalibrate, and to reconnect with other women who are on the journey with them. So we have some exciting mothers events and retreats coming up, which I'm very passionate about providing more for the mothers of the world, as well as I have been fixated and working in the background towards finding a permanent space for women, men, founders, entrepreneurs, mothers, everyone who needs a space to go to that allows connection to nature, connection to self, healing, for beauty, for inspiration, and for light. I feel like this world needs this desperately, and I've really made it my mission to try and create a space that is going to be able to solve many of the problems I see.
That is very exciting. When will you be able to share more on all of these amazing things?
Yes. And I think it's full circle, because my word being pivot has been a big part of this project, which has been one of the most difficult, expansive, and rewarding journeys of my life. And it's been the last 18 months that I've been working on this in the background. And in the next month or two, we'll be able to hopefully share some very exciting news.
That is very exciting. Congratulations on everything that you have achieved. Like, The women that you have been able to really hold space for and nourish and connect and inspire and motivate and ultimately help them transform their life, it takes a very special person to do that. And in order to do that effectively, it's not lost on me how much inner work that you would have had to have done on yourself. And yes, that's spanned over many years, but you've now stepped into it. It's another level to be able to really hold that space. So good on you.
Straight back at you, sister. You're doing the work, just like this conversation and the work that you're doing, it's a choice. We don't have to do this work. And I just see you and these conversations and your commitment to helping people believe in themselves. And it's so beautiful. And the more people that are on this planet to help others, achieve their full potential is a gift and needs to be celebrated.
I agree. Something I really want to highlight to the listener is that since starting this podcast and even before with the one-on-one work that I do, I feel is very similar to your experience in that when you are living a life that is so aligned to who you truly are, the most aligned magnetic people will flood your life. Grace was literally saying that the most incredible women are just coming into her space. Grace is sitting here with me now. We've never actually met in person. We were just yapping away beforehand like we've been friends for years. This isn't coincidence. I just got covered in goosebumps. It's not coincidence. Like when you are living your authentic expression, when you are celebrating and embracing your uniqueness and your unique perspective of the world, like your 3D reality has no choice but to reflect that. And this conversation is just, it's such a testament to that.
Oh, that is so, this is what it's all about.
Yes.
And I love how much you feel and see it. And I hope that any woman who's on the other side of this and is just seeking this love and this light and this connection knows how good it can be on the other side. Yeah.
Yes. Tell everyone where we can find you online.
Instagram is Holding Space WG, and then our website is Holding Space WG. And we have so many events and retreats coming up. So if they get the ping, can't wait to welcome them in.
And you don't just do Brisbane. I know that you have done one in Sydney as well.
Yes, Sydney, and with Byron, and we have done events in Noosa. And so there's a few exciting things in the horizon. Hopefully we can come to them, but if not, Gold Coast Hinterland.
Well worth the trip.
Yes.
Make a little mini vacay out of it.
I love it. We'll get you on the promo.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. I just know that this is the start of an incredible friendship. So I really appreciate you and your transparency and your honesty. And I can't wait to join you at one of your events and just experience the nourishment that I can see online.
Oh, I appreciate you. This was so much fun. Thank you, beautiful.
Thank you.